All right, folks, it's time to return to some good old-fashioned bullet testing here with 6.5 Creedmoor. Today's bullet has been a surprise to me so far. It is the 140 grain Hornady match. Their basic boat tail hollow point 140 grain 6.5 bullet. As you can see, I've got a big old box of 500 of these guys. It's not necessarily smart to buy a 500 pack of a bullet you've never shot before, but the reason I bought them is I just went out looking for the cheapest match style bullet I could find for our general testing in 6.5 Creedmoor. Just whenever we run tests where we just need a freaking bullet to stick in there. So if they weren't the most accurate things in the world, that would have been okay. But we've fired a little over 100 of these guys in the hang fire series that we just finished up. And the accuracy looks like it's going to be outstanding with these guys. We've shot some really impressive groups in those videos when we were just, grabbing random load data doing hang fire testing. So I'm very interested to see how well they're going to shoot now whenever we try to narrow things down and find a good charge, because random charges seem to be shooting pretty well. Like I mentioned, this is an inexpensive bullet compared to other bullets of this type. I got this 500 pack from Brownells. It was $121.99. It was on sale. The normal price is $130, and plus they had some free shipping, so it worked out well. These guys are about 24 cents a piece. So for powders for today, I decided to go with Reloder 17. We've tested a pretty good amount with Reloder 17 as we get started here with 6.5 Creedmoor, and it's been a pretty good accuracy powder and gives some impressive velocities as well. And the other is Reloder 26. This is a powder that, by all accounts, this should really be a little too slow burning for the 6.5 Creedmoor cartridge, but by God, you jam enough in there and the velocities are incredible. The Berger load data for their 135 grain classic hunter bullet had this powder on it, which is why I picked it up, and seeing other reports of people getting crazy velocities with this stuff. So I want to try it here today with our 140 grain Hornady, and I'm expecting some just absolutely silly velocities. Hopefully the accuracy holds together as well. On the primer side of things, we're going to switch over and start using the Remington 7.5 primer. Right, recently in that hang fire series I was just talking about, we did a lot of primer testing, and this really seemed to be one of the very best performers. So we're going to switch over and start using this guy as our general purpose small rifle primer for 6.5 Creedmoor. Our brass is going to be the Starline brass we've been shooting. This stuff has now been fired 5 times. We're starting on the 6th firing, and I've actually already primed these guys, and the primer pockets are still feeling good, so brass is still holding together, and we're on firing number 6. I was a little bit worried about the primer pockets because over in 223, we seem to have found that the Remington 7.5 primer has a little bit smaller diameter than, well, in particular, the CCI 41 primer. So in 223, with brass that I had been using CCI 41 primers in, if I tried to then switch to the Remington, they were just automatically loose. So since we've been shooting a lot of CCI 450s in this brass, I thought switching over to the Remington, we might see some loose primer pockets just because they've been stretched out to the CCI size, but no problems. They were all still nice and tight here with the Remington 7.5, so that's good. So this stuff has been, of course, fully 3-sized. I bumped the shoulder 2 or 3 thousandths. Still, none of it really needs trimmed. After the last firing, I did go through and trim, but there were only a couple cases that got anything taken off. This Starline brass came from the factory very short, and we're still to a point where I really haven't needed to trim anything. None of them are even close to maximum length. And to be honest, that's a little bit disappointing because the more and more firings we get, the more and more, times I'm chamfering those case mouths and stuff like that. So it's almost nice to have them stretch a little bit and get to trim them off every once in a while, but it's still holding together well. I did, chamfer the case mouths, but I was just, I've been very careful with them, not to go to town. You don't want to overdo it and, carve out a bunch of brass every time you do it, just enough to knock off any burrs, get them kind of slick and ready for that next bullet to go in smooth. So far so good with Starline brass. That's really my only complaint. I wish they had come a little bit longer. So let's talk about the actual load data. Now in our Hornady manual, we do have load data for Reloder 17. And also, I guess we should say first, the overall length, I want to shoot 2.800 inches today. That's what they recommend in the Hornady manual. Now over in the Hangfire series, we shot them at 2.875 and we also shot them at 2.8. I want to go ahead and stick with the shorter number here, the 2.8 number. We'll get a baseline of accuracy at 2.8, and then if we're not liking what we see, we can play around with longer lengths, getting closer to the lands, and see if it improves at all. In my gun, I can load this bullet as long as 2.890. So at 2.800, we're jumping about 90 thousandths to the lands. So back to charge weight. The Hornady manual shows a max charge with Reloder 17 of 41.3 grains. We've already shot 41.3 grains with this bullet over in the Hangfire videos. We didn't see any pressure signs, nothing to worry about. Looking around at some other manuals, they go a little bit hotter than 41.3. So I want to go ahead in today's video and shoot up to 42.0. We'll shoot 0.3 of a grain increments, so that'll put us starting at 40.8 and working our way up to 42.0. From the charges we've shot with other bullets, I don't expect to have any pressure problems, but we'll keep a close eye on our brass to be sure. Now, Reloder 26, like I mentioned, there's no load data out there. The only baseline we have is that 135 grain data from Berger and our own experience. Now with the 135 grain Berger, we shot all the way up to, I think it was 49.8 grains, almost 50 grains, and still didn't really have any major pressure problems. So the limiting factor really does seem to be case capacity. So that's actually why I had already primed this brass. I wanted to get some primers in there and start playing around with case fill just to see about what level of powder I wanted to shoot. I want to go up to 48.5 grains. That's a lot of powder. It's just a little bit up into the neck. It's going to be a pretty compressed charge, but it's not going to be any worse than what we did with the 135 Berger. So I don't know. We'll keep a close eye on it as we shoot and watch for pressure. But I think that range, 47.3 will be our starting charge, and our max charge will be 48.5. We'll just see what happens. So that's it. That's the plan. That's our situation. Our brass is already primed and ready to go, so I'm ready to start weighing out some powder. So I'm just finishing up weighing out the Reloder 26 charges. And I'll give you guys a look at the case fill on these guys. It's not bad, but definitely a very full case. Okay, first here's our starting charge of 47.3 grains. Just a little bit below the neck. And this is our max charge of 48.5. Just slightly above that shoulder and into the neck. So they'll be a little bit crunchy, but it's not ridiculous, right? It's not crazy. All right, first things first with a new bullet, we need to double check to make sure we're using the right seating stem. So we've got one stem that's really bad. We put it down in there and it just wobbles all over the place. Not a very good fit. We've got another that's pretty darn good. And the third we've got is just slightly better. Very nice fit with this guy. So that's the one we'll use. And just in case you don't know, two of the seating stems came with the custom grade Hornady die set that we use. And the third was ordered separately as the 130, 140 ELD match and AMAX. So I don't know how the ELD match and the standard Hornady match that we're shooting compare to one another. But to be honest, I lost track of which stem was actually the one that came from this package. So I just grab all three of them and see which one seems to fit best. They don't have any markings on them, so whatever. The method we're using has been working pretty well. So put our micro just seating stem back in there and let's back out our seating die a bit and seat this first guy. All right, so 2.8 inches is our goal. This first one here, 2.867. So let's go ahead and go down 50. That'll get us a little bit closer. And then I'll seat a couple of them and we'll get an average. 2.819, 2.816, 2.813, 2.818, and 2.819. I tell you what, let's go down Okay, I think our longest was what, 2.819. So let's grab this one that's 2.818, and we'll just take it down until this guy reads exactly 2.8, and we'll call that good enough. That should be about 18 thousandths. Yep, 2.800. So we'll just call that good enough. The hollow point on these guys is definitely irregular, right? So seeing 6, 7, 8 thousandths of variation in overall length to the tip of the bullet is normal. So now that these guys are seated to more or less 2.8, let's pull out the Hornady bullet comparator and see what the measurement is from cartridge base to ogive. 2.208, 2.2075, 2.2085, 2.208, and 2.208. So very consistent overall length from cartridge base to ogive. All right, so I've jumped forward to a couple of our maximum charges. These are, of course, the most compressed. They're a little bit crunchy. So let's see if our cartridge base to ogive length grew any with these. Yeah, I'm seeing 2.210. So with the compressed charge, our overall length has grown just a smidgen. Let me run them back through the seating die one more time. Sometimes that can help just a touch. Nope, not really. They're still reading about 2.209. So about 1/1000th of an inch of change with the heavily compressed charge. That's not something I'm going to worry about, and I'm not going to touch our seating die. I'm just going to let them grow. So that's pretty much it, folks. Our Reloder 17 charges, not nearly as much case fill, or not quite so heavily compressed, but it's going to be right there about 100%. I expect our highest charge to probably be just slightly compressed a touch, perhaps, but nothing really interesting to see on that side of things. So I think we'll just leave it here and go ahead and get on out to the range. All right, folks, don't let the snow fool you. It's like almost 50 degrees out here today. It's really warmed up. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm kind of ready for this snow to go away because it makes filming a huge pain in the butt. Filming a black gun on a nearly white background it just sucks. But it is what it is. Today we've got a target at 100 yards. This is our Thompson center compass. It has a 22-inch barrel with a 1-in-8 twist. I've got a Silencer Co. Omega suppressor, a Magneto Speed chronograph, a 4-16 by 44 Vortex scope, and we are ready to get started. One thing you might notice, I've been trying to play around with this a little bit, is some of the earlier videos I've had my front rest right up here, right under the chamber. And that shot pretty well for us. But I've been slowly trying to creep this guy out a little bit because like right now it's about as far forward as I would like to have it. This gives me the most stable rest. And our barrel is floated pretty well, so I don't think it's going to affect accuracy at all. But here, our first couple groups, if they're disappointing, I might play around with this front rest position. I really don't think it's going to matter in this situation where, we've got, like I said, we've got a nice free floated barrel, and we shouldn't have to worry about pressure and contact and stuff up here around the front rest. So whatever. So we're going to start with Reloder 26. I'm thinking these velocities are going to be silly. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they do. Did I already mention we're at 100 yards? The dots are 1 inch. So let's go ahead and get started. First up is 47.3 grains of Reloder 26. So I think that was our first shot that went high, and that was a bit of an oil shot. I did run some patches through the barrel. It had been actually a couple hundred rounds since I had really cleaned out the barrel. So that was a pretty clean barrel. So hopefully that's why that one shot went high. Although I can't really see the holes that well. Is it just the one high and then the 4 grouped together down lower? I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and go down on the scope 1.5 minutes. It's been a little bit high in the last couple of videos anyway, so let's go 1 minute. Yeah, so we've gone down 1 minute. That first shot was also 40 feet per second slower than the next lowest velocity. All of the, the first shot was 27.35, and then all of the remaining shots were between 27.74 and 28.09. So I think that first shot just kind of screwed us up a little bit. Okay, next up, 47.6 grains. So our pressure signs so far seem okay, but if you've been following along on our little journey with this gun, it does crater primers a little bit. And the craters I'm seeing on these Remington 7.5 primers are distinctly worse than we've seen on the CCI 450 primers that we've mainly been shooting in the past. That's not a huge surprise. I think the Remingtons are a little softer than the CCIs, maybe a little thinner cup. But we'll have to keep our eye on it. If we start piercing primers, that's not a good thing. Okay, next up is 47.9 grains. All right, good looking group. Got a little bit of wind picking up on me, but the good thing is it's basically coming from straight behind me towards the target. So I'm hoping it won't have much effect. Okay, next is 48.2 grains. Yeah, I got a little smoke coming out of the receiver. I'm wondering if we pierced one. I bet we did. Yep, we sure did. Have a look at the bolt here, make sure that nothing got screwed up. So the bolt face seems fine. The tip of the firing pin seems okay. So I think we're fine. But our last charge of 48.5, I think it's better that we just skip it. I knew that was coming. Like, you know, once we get back to the bench, I'll show you guys the primer cratering I was seeing, but it was getting a little bit excessive. I think when we're going for super hot loads, super extreme velocities like this, the CCI 41 might be the better choice just because, you know, it has a thicker cup, a little bit harder, and should be a little more difficult to pierce. So moving on to Reloder 17. First up is 40.8 grains. Now these should have some more normal velocities. All right, nice little group to start out the Reloder 17 test here. Velocity's back down to earth at 2670. Okay, 41.1 grains is next. Yeah, so our primer craters are looking pretty gnarly here with Reloder 17 as well. So we might find CCI 41 might just be the better choice for primers. I don't know, we'll see. $41.4. All right, that looks like a pretty good group. Okay, folks, sorry about the audio there. With our last 10 shots at the range, some idiot forgot to hit record on his audio recorder that he uses almost every single day. You'd think he would figure it out by now, but, you know, it happens. All right, let's start out with a look at the brass. These are a couple pieces of our max charge of Reloder 26. This is the guy that pierced. Let me get some light down in there. You can actually see the anvil right through the hole. Look at that. That is not good. And I saw it was coming because here's another one from that row. You know, you look at it this way, it looks kind of normal, but you turn it sideways. Oh, wow. These guys were raising up big time. So this is much worse cratering than we've seen in the past with the CCI 450 primer. And, you know, and plus these were very hot loads. Did get some shiny stuff. You can see a little circle there from the ejector. So these loads were certainly hot. Here's a couple of our lowest load with Reloder 26. And you can see they were already really kind of raising up more than I wanted to see. So kind of saw this coming. Here are a couple from our max charge of Reloder 17. Maybe not quite as bad, but that's just because I grabbed the wrong ones. See if I can find you a nice gnarly one from that side. Yeah, there's a couple. So if we went much farther with Reloder 17, it wouldn't have surprised me to see some of these guys get pierced as well. Okay, let's look at the groups. And I want to start out by making an observation that might sound like an excuse. So we talked about it a little bit on the range. That very first shot went quite high, you know, very high and a little bit to the left. It kind of screwed up that first group. That first group was a 1.229 inch group. If you go down to the second row, the second group, the 41.1 grain group of Reloder 17, before I shot this group, I took an extended break. Now, between each group, I generally take a couple minutes. I put the chamber chiller in and give it, 2, 3, 4 minutes. But before, after the first Reloder 17 group, I took an extended break. It was a half hour, 45 minutes or so. And that first shot on the 41.1 grain group went a little bit high and a little bit to the left. We've kind of been seeing this a little bit. There was one guy who was mentioning it in the comments in almost every video. Like, hey man, the gun's shooting high with the first shot. And I was kind of trying to wait a couple more videos or whatever, just to get a little bit more evidence to make sure that I was seeing it myself before I mentioned it. But I think this is a very good illustration of it. Like that first shot goes high and then the rest are low. And these first shots also seem to be low in velocity. So it's like the first shot is 20 or 30 feet per second slower and a little bit high and generally a touch to the left. I started with a completely cold barrel today, cold and clean barrel today. So that, I might need to just start putting one in the dirt, a warm-up shot before starting groups to get rid of this. But very important in a hunting rifle to know this. It's not unheard of. Some guns do this. So we'll keep it in mind. We will continue to observe it over time and characterize it as best we can. But it kind of screwed up our two groups there. Those were the only two groups today that were over an inch. So Reloder 26, of course, the velocities were just crazy. That's nice and fast for a 140 grain bullet out of a 22 inch barrel, no doubt about it. And, if we had been using a primer that could have stood up to it a little bit more and shot that last charge, it would have been even higher. So Reloder 26 is just nuts as far as velocity goes. So the accuracy with Reloder 26, I don't think it was as good as Reloder 17. Just kind of, the eyeball test. Reloder 17 seemed to be wanting to shoot them through the same hole a lot more often than Reloder 26 did. And I think we could maybe say at this point that that's a little bit of a trend. We've shot a fair amount of Reloder 26 at this point, and accuracy has always been good. You could even say excellent, but it hasn't quite been stellar. There have been other powders that seem to shoot a little bit tighter groups, but this is still very, very good shooting. Excellent shooting. You know, and there are a lot of situations where the extra velocity is worth giving up maybe just a little bit of accuracy. So Reloder 26 continues to impress. Reloder 17 continues to be a good accuracy powder. Some of our best groups so far out of this gun have been with Reloder 17. And it continues to do a pretty good job here with the 140 grain Hornady. And we made it up to 2,750 feet per second, which is not too shabby at all. Probably went a little over pressure here, but I'm liking the looks of that 41.4 grain load. 2,700 feet per second is a half-inch group, and it was a good-looking half-inch group, right? We hung that one shot out to the right just a little bit. It was about to be a really, really good group. But overall, just excellent stuff. Like, have I mentioned that this is a $225 gun? Or I guess the rebate's over by now, so it's a $300 gun. This is a $300 gun shooting the cheapest bullet I could find. So I just continue to be impressed by the compass. We're using cheap dies, we're using cheap brass. There is no way we could have expected any better performance out of our setup than what we've seen so far. So just excellent stuff. So there's a whole lot more powders to test here with the 140 grain Hornady. We'll probably get to all of them at some point. We do have a whole bunch of different bullets on hand to test. So I'm not sure which way we'll go next. Probably won't be, you know, our next video, our next 6.5 Creedmoor video probably won't be another one with the Hornady match. I need to go back and revisit some of those hunting bullets. I want to get a couple hunting bullet loads together and do another gel test video. So it feels like we're still just getting started here with 6.5 Creedmoor. You know, I think we need to switch to the CCI 41 primer. I don't know why I didn't think about this when I was doing the hang fire videos. I should have brought that up in that video series, but CCI 41 being a much harder primer in a gun that's already prone to cratering, it's kind of a no-brainer. I think we're going to have to go with CCI 41s. So I've started to ramble, which means it's time to wrap this thing up. If you'd like to help support my channel, come to patreon.com/reloading. If you're going to buy yourself some 140 grain Hornady match bullets, I'll have links down in the description, and those are affiliate links. Same place I brought these, Brownells. I'll have a link to Brownells. And if you use my affiliate link, they'll give me a couple pennies on the dollar for a referral. And it adds up quick. So I appreciate all the support, guys. I'll see you next time.